Okay, guys, we'll move on to our third and final session of the morning. So Nitin here is our senior software engineer in Practo Technologies. Practo Technologies are mostly related to healthcare system. They are the leading healthcare system in India. He has been there with Practo from almost day one. So yeah, over to you, Nitin.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
Hello.
Yes,
Yeah,
you're audible,
sure.
Nitin.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Dubak. Uh, I'm gonna share my screen. Um,
Okay. Uh, so I have posted a feedback form link in the chat. So you guys can submit your feedback at the end of the event. That would be great so that we
so can you
can
guys see my screen?
feedback. Yes,
I can see the screen, right?
you can start, Nathan.
Dubak, can you see my
Yes, we can.
screen?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
it
sure.
is
Thank
visible.
you. Yeah,
You can go ahead.
thanks, Dubak. Yeah. Hi guys. So this is session like is about like scaling your application. What I'm going to take like you the basic thing that you can take when you scale your applications, right? So before that, a little bit about me. I'm actually Nitin. I'm actually an engineer from Practo, where I have managed like a complete infrastructure of a business unit, right? Okay, so in this session, the basic question that I'm gonna answer is like how do you scale, right? So before we jump right into the topic, like I want to do some kind of level setting because there are like some students here and there are like some working professionals also. So before that, we will brush some of the basic terminology that I'm gonna use in this session. So first thing is like the performance versus scalability. So a scalable system is the system which can actually withstand a lot of users, right? Uh, okay, a service is scalable when its performance increases in proportion to the resource that we added, right? So when a system we said that scalable, so it can actually perform like a lot of units of work at the same time, you can actually handle like very large amounts of work, like when the data set grows, right? And if a system has some kind of like performance problem, then that system would be slow for a single user. But whenever the system has some scalability problem, so it will be faster for a single user, but it will be very slow under heavy load. Latency versus throughput. So latency, this, I think this terminology most of you guys know. Latency is the time to perform some action or to produce some result, and throughput is the number of such actions or results per unit time. So generally, when we design a scalable system, what we actually look for is like a maximum throughput with acceptable latency. Okay. So the slide we're gonna use AWS for the explanation. So mostly this will be related to AWS. So and I'll be using some kind of like AWS components. And if you guys have any doubt on this kind of any AWS component, you guys can actually like note it down and actually ask in the later session. So AWS has like 24 regions around the world, and there's one in India as well. It's in Mumbai. Uh, within and within those regions, so AWS has a concept called availability zone. So this is an important aspect of your scalability for getting high availability. So high availability means like if you build an application, it should be available all the time. It should not have any downtime, right? And uh, so because of the load, the system can go down. So in that case, the system is not available. So it should be available all the time. Okay, and in this, so AWS has a lot of services that actually leverages this multiple availability zone architecture, and they allow us to create application which actually which is very highly fault tolerant, very highly available. So the last point in here, I want to talk about the like edge locations. Like they have like 216 edge locations. So edge location again, you can actually think of it as a kind of like physical location, where, like for example, data centers, right? You might know about data centers. So AWS has like around like 216 edge locations around the globe as of yesterday. So these edge locations are used in like content distribution. There's some service called Content Distribution Network (CDN), and it's called CloudFront. And they have something called Route 53. It's managed DNS service. So these things, this edge locations allows the users to get their content at very low latency globally. So you can actually cache like okay. I'll talk about that later session. So okay. Okay, so these are the basic building blocks that I'm going to explain in this session. So these are the like very highly available service and very fault tolerant service. We can use these components to build some kind of like some highly available architecture. And so a little bit more about the availability zone. Like availability zone is a physical location that like exists within a region. Like think of them as a kind of like data centers. Sometimes they comprise of multiple data centers also. So they're separate enough that they got like separate power supply, separate internet connection, and the only connection that they have in between is a low latency connection between each other, right? So that you can actually architect your application as if they exist in the same physical location, but yet they're actually separated by like 5 or 15 miles from each other. The service, like you can in the right side you can see some services that are like that are exist within a single availability zone. So but I will tell you how to use these services to build highly available architecture. So yeah, so let's start from day one, right? So you're the user, right? So you're building some application, and you're gonna need some basic component to start. And so this is what actually probably the architecture is gonna look like, right? You got like there are some component that you can see like Amazon Route 53. It's a managed DNS service, and you got an easy to instance. You can consider it as like a a machine, and every like you put everything your code like application code, database, everything in that single instance, right? And you got an elastic IP. It's a fixed elastic IP. So you can actually get some like a fully qualified domain name like some something.com, and you can actually map that to an elastic IP using Amazon Route 53, right? Yeah. So this is a fully functional web app. Okay. So this actually serves your needs, right? But at some point you're gonna use like a bigger machine, because like we might have started with a smaller engine like which only have like two cores of CPU, and you have only 8 GBs of machine. But at some point you need more compute power, and this is the simplest approach in scaling, right? Just use a like a different machine with more power, and this is what we call as in technical term we call it as vertical scaling. So we're gonna use a bigger machine with bigger capacity. So what are you gonna do? Like you can just stop the instance and start a new instance, and we can select a machine with 100 cores of CPU sometimes, right? But again, in this case also, at some point we're gonna like we're gonna we are actually will reach some point we're gonna do something else, because there are like sometimes the capacity of the system can actually will we actually got a very high configuration machine, but still we are not able to handle the load, right? At that time we got to do something else. So yeah. Yes. So this is what the architecture look like when I start, right? So you can actually see here like there are a lot of problems here. Like there is no redundancy and no failure, because whenever your single instance fail, your entire application fails. And there are like too many things in a single EC2 instance. Like you got your database, you got your application code, and web server. You got everything in the single thing, right? So whenever it fails, okay, so you got a problem. So everything fails, right? Okay, so Yeah, so we gotta deal with like multiple users, right? Now you have more than one user. So this is the right time. Actually, I would suggest like you can actually take your database and moving off your web server, right? Don't put that in the same single web instance. This actually gives me wonderful ability to scale the tiers of my web application independently, right? So now I got a web tier. Now I got a data tier. So in the web tier, you got to put your all the application code, and the database is managed in a different instance. Actually, what I'm doing in this case is I'm actually lightening the load of the single box. Now I have a different database and different like web instance, right? Now it's lesser load, right? Yeah, and I also want to suggest that like this is the right time. Maybe we can actually think of like having a managed database service. Like most of us architecting this application are not like database administrators, right? So we don't want to deal with the task of managing the database and to take the backup. We don't have to deal with these backups or replication or whatever like availability of the database, right? So AWS has its own tools to do that. So you can have like if you're talking about the tools, like you can actually have a single EC2 instance. You can take an EC2 instance and you can actually install your own favorite database and you can actually manage it. That allows, right? And but if you're actually looking for like a managed database service, there are a lot of there are a lot of options that AWS provide. There are AWS RDS, like it's a relation database system, and there is like Amazon DynamoDB. It's a NoSQL based database, and there is like Amazon Redshift. These are like the Amazon like provide a lot of database services. So in this case, you don't have to actually worry about the backups or patching anything. So you have like a very highly available database in like in single click if you're going to use this like a managed database service. Okay, so now that like our system started growing, right? Like we are added like a couple of components, and this is a time that maybe you can actually check for like looking at the security of the system. You don't want a third person outside the outside world you have access to the service, right? So you can actually have security, you can implement some security. So there's some concept called VPC. So it's kind of like it's a wrapper. So you can actually kind of put all your services within that VPC. So no one will have access to that VPC. So for communicating to the outside world from the VPC, you can actually create a public subnet, and you can actually have a connection, internet connection over there. And all the internal connection between these happens to the private subnet that we create within the VPC. And there's some concept called security groups. Security groups allows like these are like some kind of rules you can actually use which actually control the communication between the AWS resources internally. So maybe you should utilize that also. Okay, now we have a question like whether we should actually choose an SQL based database or like a NoSQL database, right? So what I'm going to suggest in this case is like let's actually start with the SQL. So why? Because it's a well-established technology, right? Now there are lots of information on how to scale these databases, on how to interact with these databases, lots of support groups, and lots of like books and everything, right? And it's not gonna fail these databases for your first 10 million users, most probably, right? But there are some cases like if you're like dealing with a very high data intensive application, or like you're actually dealing with like terabytes of data in a shorter period of times. Okay, you might need a NoSQL. There's no actually we cannot use SQL in that case, right? And like why else you might need to use NoSQL, like if you have like a non-relational data, or you have a like very rapid ingest of data, like you're writing like thousands of records into your database, and you don't need any complex joins, then probably you can actually go with NoSQL. Okay, so now actually we can like we got like hundreds of users. So let's see how our architecture will change. So here actually you can see here. So I have actually used like a instance like web instance, and I have used like RDS DB instance. Now like it is separate, right? And yeah, this is what my architecture is going to look like in this special case. In this case, like we have like only hundreds of users. Okay. So now, like our user starts growing. Now we have like more than like 1,000 users. Let's see how actually deal with these cases. So if you notice, like if you slides back, I have addressed like about vertical scale, right? And I have like addressed about some problems like the availability problem, right? If a single web server goes down, like we have got a problem, some problem. We don't have like a failover there, right? The application will go down if our single instance goes down. Okay, so here I have added like few more things into the architecture to help this out. Like first thing I have added is an availability zone. Like I have multiple availability zone, right? You can actually see here. So and I put the one web instance in another availability zone. I did not put in the same availability zone. That's okay because the latency between this availability zone is low single digit milliseconds. That's almost like they are like they're right racks right next to each other. The next thing I have next thing I have added is like a slave database for my RDS implementation. So now I have a failover database for my MySQL relation database. So if there is some problem with my master, like you can actually see here that M represents the master database and like S represents the slave database. So if something happens to my master database, my application can automatically switch over to the slave. And by the way, like there is no application change that you need to make in these cases. Like it's the same endpoint and it's the same connection string. So your application doesn't even have to aware of this slave architecture. Finally, you can see I have added something called an ELB. That's Elastic Load Balancer. It's a cloud load balancer. That's an important part of the puzzle. So because my users want to be distributed equally in this between these instances in those two different availability zones. And this cloud balancer ELB gonna help me going to give me that ability. This load balancer is like it's a highly available service created by AWS. Right? It's a single DNS endpoint. You can actually map your IP address, or sorry, your fully qualified domain name to the ELB address through Amazon Route 53. And there is some feature called health check for this ELB. Like what is health check do is like it's actually continuously monitor like the health of the instances under that ELB. So if one application actually fails, one of the application has some problem, the ELB will stop sending traffic to that instance, right? Okay, so this is actually what we call it as like horizontal scaling. It's because I'm actually adding like something on the like horizontally. Okay, so this architecture can take us pretty far, right? So we're gonna be able to get hundreds of thousands of users, but if you see that like this is like if you want to handle like hundreds of thousands of users, I'll have to use this kind of architecture, right? Here you can see like there are I have added like 4 instances in these availability zones, right? Instead of four instance, you may have to use like thousands of instances within inside the I mean under the load balancer, right? Also, you can see in this architecture. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry for that. No. Okay, so if you see in this architecture, I have added something called read replicas. Like you can see here, R represents read replicas, and M represents the master, and S represents the slave database. So read replicas is a concept like to take the load from the master. Okay, let my master handle all the writes to the DB. So if here M is the master, which actually handle all the writes, right? And all my read replicas will handle all other traffic, right? This is an important concept in scaling, right? And what I'm actually doing is like I'm actually taking a load from my master and actually taking off my master and giving that to the read replicas. This is an important concept in scaling and like getting in a highly available application and highly scalable applications, right? Okay. So yeah, so in fact, actually, we are doing kind of like lightening the load from our server. Now we have like we have got our web tier and we have got our data tier, right? Let's see, like there are some other like ways we can actually lighten the load from these tiers. Okay, so what are the things we can do? So one thing is like you can actually move your static content in the web app to Amazon S3. I'll explain about S3. and friended with Amazon CloudFront. So S3 and CloudFront are like some services offered by Amazon Web Service. Okay, so Amazon S3 is like object storage. It's not like it's not the storage like that we using like EC2 under EC2, right? It's a great place. Amazon S3 is a great place to store all the static content, whether it be CSS. Like you might have a lot of CSS like JavaScripts, videos, images, right? These files does not have to be sit on your EC2 instance. Right? You can actually just put it into S3 and take the load from the web server. Amazon S3 is a very infinitely highly like infinitely scalable application. You can put a lot of data that whenever you want, and if you want to like have some encryption, like before actually adding into the S3, you can use your own encryption algorithm, or Amazon actually provide a lot of encryption services also. Now about like Amazon CloudFront, you can actually think of it as just a cache, right? So your aim is you want to reach your content to the customer quickly as possible with a low latency, right? Cache it. So what you're gonna do is like you just take all these static contents like JavaScript, JavaScript and CSS, images, videos, and just put it in like S3 and say whenever a request comes for that file. So what the Route 53 will actually contact Amazon CloudFront. Okay, so Amazon CloudFront actually it's actually distributed all over the world, right? So it can actually fetch even without going to S3, even without going to web instance. So it's actually cached across the world. So if your application is running in like Mumbai and a user actually using an application with from Kerala or like so from the US, will see the same like almost same latency, right? Because it's actually replicated over the Amazon CloudFront, and it's a Amazon CloudFront is like a great tool for like if you are building like video streaming applications. The next thing that you can do to lighten the load is like session. Like you're sure currently you might be storing your session or state like in within the web server, right? So you can actually move this to like a DynamoDB. It's again AWS service. It's a NoSQL implementation, right? It's a fully distributed and it's very highly available service. So a DynamoDB is like store the data in the form of key value pair, and also they have support for JSON also, right? So next is using about Elastic Cache. So we have actually offloaded the data from offloaded some of the traffic from the web server, right? Now actually what we are going to do here is like uh, we are going to take data off my data tier and lessening the load in the data tier. So if you have I think Arjun already explained this one like about like caching your content, right? So if you have some content like getting read all the time, so it's the same content. If it's the same content, put in the cache. I don't want my like database to handle that, right? So you just have to put this content into the cache. So it will so my database load will actually reduce in that case, right? In AWS, so Elastic Cache is a managed like cache service by AWS. Like it can be a like Redis implementation, it can be a like Memcache implementation. You can choose whatever you want, right? Okay. After doing all these things, now I have got a web tier which is more lightweight compared to my previous version, and this is the place I can use. We can actually use a concept called auto scaling. So what is auto scaling? So auto scaling is actually automatic resizing of your compute cluster that you create. Right? You get to define your like minimum and maximum pool size. What is it? What is the smallest number of instances that I want, and what is the number of maximum number of instances that I want my in the cluster. So there is a service called CloudWatch again, and that's a managed service by AWS, which is embedded in all the applications. To which you can actually collect various matrices, and the auto scaling can use these matrices to scale up or scale down. So what are the things that we can like we can actually collect the CPU utilization of the machine. What is the network bandwidth of that machine? What is the memory in that machine? So we can collect all these matrices by CloudWatch and tell my auto scaling to select any of these matrices to scale up or scale down. So if you choose like say if you choose like to scale based on CPU utilization, now I have actually set up a policy that whenever my CPU utilization actually crosses like 60 percentage, so then scale up, right? So whenever you have like a high load on your system and which actually cross, then what autoscale will do is it will actually spin up a new machine to make that average CPU utilization below 60 percentage. And whenever your CPU utilization actually goes down below like 60%, like 30 or sometime, then what autoscaling will do is like, it will actually reduce one instance so that you can actually save your cost. Okay, so again, like you can actually push custom matrices to the CloudWatch. If you want to scale based on some application that is specific to your, that is specific, right? You can push that matrices into the CloudWatch and tell auto scaling that okay, you just take these matrices for scaling, right? And so let's see how like auto scaling can like help in saving the cost. So this is the graph that I took. This is weekly traffic to Amazon.com. Like this is a reference graph. Okay, you can see here. So you can actually see here like on this is normal daytime traffic or day night time traffic. So during days you can actually see like it's actually spiking up, and during night actually it's spiking down. Like and so if you actually think like okay, I'm gonna actually provision like 15 percentage of this load. So what you're gonna do is like you will provision 15 percentage above this one, right? Let me draw something here like okay, it's not looking so. Okay, that's what it is. So you're gonna provision like 15 percentage on top of this load, right? Okay. Okay, this is your provision compute power, right? So under this case, your application is gonna work. So, but think about some days like a big billion day. So in that case, a lot of customers are gonna use that like system, right? So what in that case, like for some days, the traffic will be not will not be like even like this. It will be like some kind of like it actually will be like something like this, right? Yeah. So what will happen in this case? So in this case, so if you can see here, like your system will not be able to handle this kind of load, and it will go down, right? So what we can do? Okay, we can do one thing here. Like we can actually have, sorry, you can actually provision a capacity like this. Okay, this actually this works. But most of the time, if you see that, most of the time if you see that, you are actually wasting this many resources, which is actually a cost, right? Most of the time, if you see this is underutilized. So I see. So if you use auto scaling, so how it gonna help you? So if you use auto scaling, so it will actually provision a compute power according to the demand. So I'll show here like if you use auto scaling, it will actually provision like this. So it will be based on the traffic, and it will be based on the demand of your the demand of your application. So even in the case of like high traffic, the auto scaling will actually scale up, and it will actually come like this. So you're not actually wasting your money, and you're actually serving your customers also, right? Good. Yeah. So now that we got like 500,000 users, now let's see how to architect like some to handle this traffic. So we'll have to use all the things that we actually saw in the previous slides. So now you can actually see here the black dotted line represents the auto scaling group, and this is actually created across the availability zones. And this is an important point, like to have this auto scaling group to span multiple availability zones, because when it scales up, it will actually create instances that's not from the single availability but from multiple availability zones. So this will help not only in the availability, not only in the scalability, but also on the availability piece. Also, you can actually see here the cache I have added here. Like you can see my read replicas, and I have actually moved all the state information or the session information to Amazon DynamoDB, and I have used AWS S3 and front it with Amazon CloudFront, right? So this is what it's actually going to look like. Okay, now that we have a lot of components that we added like thousands of instances here. Okay, one more thing is like you can actually I just added only 4 components here. In reality, it will be like thousands of instances. You can actually imagine that it's not under the load balancer. You can have like thousands of instances to handle this much traffic. Like you can actually configure those. the maximum number of instances and the minimum number of instances that you require. Okay, now we have like a lot of components in the system. We have like root replicas, we have like elastic cache, we have like DynamoDB, like thousands of instances. So like you may, this is the right time that we can actually use automation, because I don't want to individually manage these services. I can use any of the automation tool provided by the AWS. There are a lot of automation tools provided by the AWS. One such automation tool is called CodeDeploy. So CodeDeploy is a tool that you can actually use to deploy your code. Okay, so consider you have like thousands of instances under the load balancer, right? And you want to like deploy the code without a downtime. That's more important, right? You should not have a downtime when you deploy, right? So you can actually use code deploy service. So that will be that can actually so how code there are multiple way that you can use code deploy. So there is one way in code deploy. So what code deploy do is like it will actually create a copy of your uh, auto scaling group, right? It will create a lot of it will create a new auto scaling group, and it will deploy the code in the new auto scaling group, right? And it will do the health check whether it is ready to receive the traffic or not. Once it is ready with the new code, so what it's going to do is like it will actually switch the traffic to the new auto scaling group, and it will delete the old auto scaling group. Now there is no like zero downtime, right? There's no downtime. Also, like to integrate the code deploy into your code, it's very simple. Like it's actually like it's a configuration like YML configuration. You can actually read about it. It's very simple to integrate also. Okay, so now like, since we are having like 500,000 of users, and it's very important that we monitor everything and log everything, right? If you can't build a tool to monitor or to log things, you don't have to like you can actually outsource it. A third party service like there's New Relic, there is Elastic APM, there are a lot of other services that you can use. You don't have to, because your business is not to write like a tool like this. So you have to concentrate on your business, right? Yeah. So what are things that you can actually monitor? You can actually monitor host level metrics like what is the CPU utilization of a single instance under my load balancer, or what is the bandwidth, what is the memory usage. You can actually capture all this information, like aggregate level metrics, or like if you want to see like in aggregate like what is happening under my load balancer, you can actually capture all those information, log analysis. Like as I mentioned earlier, like CloudWatch was a thing that we can actually use here. You can actually capture all your application logs, whether it be Nginx logs, whether it be Apache logs. You can actually push that to into uh, you can push it to a CloudWatch and analyze those, right? Yes. So there are a lot of improvement that you can do, like by decoupling your applications. So this is what actually we call it as SOA, a service-oriented architecture. So in service-oriented architecture, what you're going to do is you're actually going to take your like web tier or data tier, and you further decompose it, further decouple it. So treat them separately and scale them separately, right? Because now that you have a smaller component, now you can actually manage them very easily. Now you don't have a monolithic. So you might have heard about that microservice architecture. So it actually comes under this one. So you actually break a big application into multiple services, right? That's what service-oriented architecture. And don't reinvent the wheel, because we have a lot of services like for emailing, for queuing, for like monitoring. We all have like a lot of available application which is very highly available, which is highly scalable. We don't have to write all these things for us, for only for our business, because you're not actually you don't want to write this one, because that you need to concentrate on only on your business logic, right? Okay, so Amazon actually provide a lot of tools for this one, like Amazon SCS. It's an actually tool for sending emails. Amazon SQS, it's for queuing, and Amazon Lambda again. It's a cloud. You might have heard about cloud functions or like serverless architecture. AWS Cloud Function, AWS SNS. Right? It's a simple notification service to sending like messages or OTP, something like that. And I'll take an example how to use Amazon SQS or some service like that. So if you consider an application like if you're working with application like a photo application where you will upload some photo, and you do something on the photo, like kind of like you're resizing the photo, you do something over the photo, right? So what you can do is like, you can actually create two components, one to upload the photo and one to process the photo. Like these services have, like don't need to be like one. You can actually create two, and you can actually use Amazon SQS as a like for sending messages between these services. So whenever you upload some photo to this one application and you send some message to through Amazon SQS, and your other service which will take this image and do something like resize or like something and an update, right? Okay, so AWS Lambda also is a very highly available service, like very available, like infinitely available service you can think of. So in the same photo application, maybe after uploading the photo, you might need to what you can do. You need to do something else again, like I told earlier. So AWS Lambda actually can do those things for you. You don't have to write code in the same web stack. You can actually write those things in the new Lambda application, right? Okay, AWS SNS, as I told, you can actually use. You don't have to like write your own services for sending SMS. You can actually use SNS, AWS SNS for sending SMS. Okay, now that we got like how 1 million users, right? Yeah. Yes, 1 million users. So, like to support this much traffic, you might need to take all the things whatever I told before. So, multi availability zone architecture, elastic load balancer between tiers. It's not only that we can actually use this elastic load balancer not only between servers. You can actually put it on top of database also if you want, right? And auto scaling, the service oriented architecture, serving content through like CloudFront, Amazon S3, and caching of your DB, of course. Okay, so yeah, this is what the whole architecture gonna look like. Here you can actually notice that here I just mentioned only like one availability zone, because I this is just to like that if I use a different availability zone here, that won't fit my screen. So that's why I just mentioned single availability zone. You can think of like same thing, or like horizontally, or like next to each other, right? So here you can actually see like all the worker instance that I told, like the worker instance which is communicating via like Amazon SQS and AWS Lambda function, the CloudWatch. The CloudWatch is actually like integrated to like, it's embedded in all the applications. You can collect the matrices of all the like components within AWS. You can actually see like internal app instances, because if you want to as a business you might need to do some kind of provisioning, right? So which is not for the customers. So you can actually create separate internal instances and you can use that. So you don't want to disturb your main servers, because main server is like dealing with the real customers. So you can actually take that load, and only for your internal purpose you can create other instances and you can put load balance over them, right? Yes. Okay. So let's actually be like with like millions like of people now. So now we got like a beautiful architecture, right? Uh, Now we got like multi-availability zone. We got like everything. Whenever your user user set grows, so you will potentially start run into like some database issues. It's good that you have already replicas, you have slave database, you have like cache, and it's all good. But at some point, you will be like you ending up with some issues in your database, because your data is so much high. Like there are like a lot of techniques that you can actually use here: federation, sharding, and maybe this is the right time to think of using a different database also, like NoSQL or Graph. So okay, what is database federation? So it's like database split your database by the function. Like consider like if you have a monolithic database which actually have tables like forms, users, products. You can what you can do is like you can actually split it into multiple database, like foreign database, like users database and product database, and you can actually scale them independently. If you have like more users, you can actually provision more capacity to the user database. You don't have to touch foreign database, you don't have to touch product database, and comparatively you will have less read and write traffic to each database, right? So there is no replication lag if you're using like a failover database or slave databases. And sharding is like again, it's actually sharding distributed some data like across different databases. You can actually see here. I have a table for product and its price, and I actually splitted this the monolithic database into multiple databases based on the price. You can actually see here, like I have a database which actually has like $0 to $49 output in its database, and 50 to 99 another database, like something like this one. So, but the problem is that your application has to do some change for this one. Your application should know. So whenever actually I query for a database, when I query for some data, so your application should be able to tell me which database to look up, right? When I'm looking for a, like $35, so it should be actually it should actually come to table one. So your application needs some change for that. Yeah. So this is what actually gonna look like when you actually scale. And a quick review, I can actually do like using multi-availability zone architecture, as I told. Make use of like self-scaling services like ELB, Amazon S3, Amazon SQS, SCS, everything, and build redundancy at every level. You don't have to have a like highly available application. You have to duplicate, or you have to duplicate your components so that you will have like redundancy at each level. And of course start with SQL, like cache data inside and outside the infrastructure. Use elastic cache within the infrastructure, and use CloudFront outside of the infrastructure. I use automation tools, as I said, and log everything, like monitor everything. So it will be helping in your like deciding where to scale down. Use service oriented architecture, and use auto scaling once you're ready, because auto scaling, you don't have to use auto scaling when you're not ready, right? And don't reinvent the wheel. Move to move to like NoSQL database only if it actually makes sense, right? Putting all this together, you can actually and like over like iterating on top of this architecture, you can actually handle a lot of users now. Like you can actually or if you now you started serving like a billions of users, right? Now you will be capable of like writing sometimes your own custom like services like Kafka, which is actually a solution by Uber, right? And something like that. You can actually like review your tech stack. Like if something comes new, you can actually always evaluate like which tech stack which actually perform. You can actually always look for like different database, or like compare the performance, and always do some kind of like analysis and make the changes iteratively, right? Yeah, that's it. Like I think this is a like very high level design, and very high level discussion, and maybe like if you have any question you can actually shoot. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nitin, for that. I think we can take some questions now. You can post your questions or maybe raise your hand so that we can take some questions. Or if you don't have any questions for Nitin, you can give us your feedback. You can post your feedback on the link which I've shared, or you could raise your hand and I can hand over the screen to you, and you can probably tell your feedback here itself. Anyone? Uh, right, I'll just wait for 1 more minute so that if you guys have any questions or anything, you can post it. Meanwhile, thanks everyone for joining the session. Thanks all our speakers, Nitin, Ajin, and Vishal, for conducting the sessions. So, as I said in the first session today, so this is just a Tech Talk series which we are going to conduct. So, this is day one. So, we'll be planning to conduct the next series, next day of this series. So, we are planning it for the second Sunday of this month. And I guess we can do it every second Sunday. I mean, second and fourth Sunday of every month. So that's the plan. This is a pretty long session. From next time onwards, we'll be just doing one session, uh, 1 hour session, and then we can take up any much topics as we want. Uh, I would like to ask all our attendees to suggest any topics which you want us to conduct sessions on. And if you have not joined the Telegram group for Kannur Developer Group, I'll post the link again here. You can please join the group so that you can get communications. All right. So, do we have any questions, feedbacks? Okay, I don't think there is any more questions. So I'm just posting this link to. Uh, I mean, this is the Telegram group joining link. Please join the group so that you can get the updates on Telegram. Right. So we can wind up our session here. Uh, so Nathan, you can post your Twitter or any other social media profile which people can contact you.
Sure, I can actually post my LinkedIn. Sorry, 1 second. Uh, yeah, I'm just so, uh, so I'm posting my LinkedIn. If you have any doubts, the chat session, I'm posting the chat session. Uh, yeah.
Okay. Right. Thanks. Okay, so we'll wind up the session here. I'll be sending out an email to all the attendees with the follow-up feedback forms. Please fill in the feedback forms. I'll be sending the Telegram group link. Please join the Telegram group link. We will try to upload the video of all these sessions on YouTube. If that is successful, I'll be sending across the URLs for those videos also. Yeah, so that's it mostly. So thank you guys for joining us today. Uh, and I know that it's like the cleaning day in Kerala today, so please keep your surroundings clean, uh, and let's fight COVID together. Thank you all for joining. Thank you. So I'll be continuing this session. I mean, I am not going to end the air meet for like 15 more minutes. So if you want to do any kind of networking, please feel free to do it. I'll be just ending the session. Right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sri Kumar. Okay. We will be still open for the social launch or the virtual tables feature. Okay. Thank you, guys. Okay. Thank you, Ashwin. Thank you, Nitin.